Hey there, welcome to lesson 4. We're going to talk about the criteria of a winning keyword. And this really is where we're going to start diving into the meat of actually discovering what a valuable keyword is. So by now you've probably got a good idea for a market that you want to go into, and you're starting to look at keywords. Honestly, all of that data really can be pretty overwhelming. So how do you know which keywords are actually winners? We're going to give you some metrics here today to help you narrow down and focus on what can truly be valuable keywords for your website. And really it does depend. The criteria of a winning primary keyword may be a little bit different than the criteria of a secondary keyword. Primary keywords are more important to get right because these are the main focus of either your small niche site or they are the pillar articles that you're using in your authority site. These are the keywords that you're truly concerned about, and so it is important that you get these right. Primary keywords require more and more detailed research. Primary keywords will also each have a pillar article built around them. And secondary keywords, on the other hand, have much lower stakes since they won't be getting such a big investment. They still are important, and so you want to look at the criteria, but we are going to focus on the primary keywords for the most part here. So here we go. This is the overall big picture of what you want to look at, and then we're going to dive down into each of these points so that you truly understand that. But the criteria of a winning primary keyword is, first of all, relevance. Secondly, local monthly search volume of at least 2,000 per month and a good CPC. And this could depend. Usually we want $1 or more for an ad-based website. If you're not an ad-based website and you're just selling your own product or have some other reason why CPC isn't quite as important, that may not be as relevant. You usually want to have something with high advertiser competition. On the other hand, you want very low competition in Google. And I'm going to show just a little bit how you can use the KC metric to help you determine the difficulty overall. But determining competition in Google is an entire lesson on its own, and that actually is the next lesson. So you're going to just get a taste of it here today, but just know that you absolutely want to have that first page in Google to be extremely low competition. And the final point that I will mention is that you want to see similar sites to yours ranking. So let's take a closer look at each of these points. First of all, relevance. A keyword that is highly relevant to a site will be much easier to rank for than something totally irrelevant, even if it's an easy keyword. For example, if we have a site about car insurance, it's going to be pretty difficult to rank for an article on pizza ovens. It just makes sense. So that's why you build your site in a particular niche. You can't just write about anything that you want and expect to have that relevance factor. So shoot for high relevance. Only settle for somewhat relevant if it makes sense for your site and your audience. And plus, you always want to be able to build a pillar article around your primary keywords. Now let's move on to search volume. Obviously, the higher local monthly search volume is always going to be better, and I'll refer to this as LMS in the future. However, keywords with high LMS are often very competitive. So the trick is really a balancing act of finding low competition keywords that still have a decent amount of search volume. So the magic numbers here that you want to shoot for: primary keywords, 2,000 searches per month. Secondary keywords, anything over 50 usually, but 200 to 880 seems to be a sweet spot. That can really vary. It may depend. You may find a whole treasure trove of keyword that have anywhere from 10 to 200 searches per month. But the idea being that you don't need to shoot for those higher search volumes overall. Now, a quick side note I will mention is that I have experienced the lower volume keywords and definitely once you get under 500 searches per month, tend to be even less competitive than sometimes the data makes them look, just suggesting that low LMS keywords may rank quicker and better. So going after these secondary keywords really needs to be part of your strategy. Now let's take a look at CPC or suggested bid. In the old days, I guess we called it cost per click. Now a lot of tools display suggested bid, but really it's the same thing. So first of all, it isn't important for all types of keywords. In particular, if your site is ad-based, if you're using Google AdSense or some other similar advertising network, CPC will be very important, but it won't be for all markets. CPC can give you a rough estimate of AdSense earnings. Here's a quick calculation if you want to do it. So you take your local monthly search volume, and this 42.13% is the percent of traffic that the #1 spot in Google gets. So if a keyword gets searched for 10,000 times per month, it's been researched to find that about 42% of the that search volume will go to the #1 spot. So in this case, 4,200 hits per month will go to that #1 website. And then if you know the AdSense click-through rate, let's say on your particular site it's 3%, and you know the AdSense CPC that you actually get on your site, so let's say it's 50 cents, you can know that for this particular keyword, you should at least be getting $63 per month. And again, that's just from that one keyword. You can usually guesstimate much higher earnings based on that, because there'll be you'll get a lot of long tail phrases, a lot of related searches. You won't get traffic only from that one keyword. So that's just a rough estimate calculation if you want to do that. For a lot of people, that's not going to matter. But if you are looking at the suggested bid and you are using Google AdSense, typically I like to shoot for CPCs that have $1 or more. Lower CPCs definitely can be okay if the search volume is higher. Lower CPCs are also okay if the article is earning money some other way. Having a high advertiser competition just lets you know that there's a lot of companies out there advertising around this particular keyword. It's a good thing. That means there's people spending money in this market, and particular advertisers are spending money in this market, especially if you're monetizing with Google AdSense or other ad networks. First, it does mean a couple of things. It does mean that CPCs are going to be more accurate if there's lots of advertisers. If there's only a couple of advertisers, that can really skew the results, the averages on CPCs, and they're not quite as reliant. And of course, the more important thing is that there actually is money being spent in your niche. Now, it really is not the end all be all, but it is a good quality signal that there's customers in the market buying things. It's also a good indicator that you can branch your blog out into potentially physical products, information products, or services as well. Another criteria for a winning keyword is that it needs to have low Google competition, meaning that first page in Google needs to show signs of weakness. And I'm going to dive into this topic a lot in the next lesson, but right now I want to just give you a few points to think about and be aware of. There's certain types of sites that you will want to see in the search engines to show you, to prove to you that there is some low competition there. So if you see, when you type in your keyword that you're thinking about targeting, if you see lots of small niche sites, that's a good thing. That means that there's probably some weakness in the results. In particular, you also want to see sites with low page authority, low domain authority, or both. Forums can also be a sign of weakness, that if these types of sites are ranking, you might be able to come in and do a better job with content and other things. Question and answer sites are also a sign of weakness. And then other types of sites with weak content, whether that's short content or content that isn't written very well. Any type of weak content is a good sign for you. And then, of course, irrelevant sites, if they just are not targeting the keyword very well, or they're not on point to the exact search query. This is just a sign that there's a need for better content, better sites, and Google probably would be happy to rank your site if you provided that better result. So there is a better way, or a best way, to judge very quickly at least, and that is using Longtail Pro's keyword competitiveness metric. That's the KC metric. I will just say that you should shoot for keywords with a KC of 35 or below and show very strong preference, meaning in most cases you should try to only go after keywords that are below 30. So 15 to 29 can be a sweet spot to look for. So I do want to explain KC just a little bit as we look at keyword competitiveness. This is a metric used in Longtail Platinum to quickly judge how difficult a keyword is to rank for. It combines all of the different factors as far as statistics to show you just one number. So it looks at the title structure, are the keywords in the title. It looks at the page authority, how high the average page authority is for all the sites ranking. It looks at domain authority, total links, and juice links, and site age. And actually there are a couple of other minor factors as well that it looks at. Keyword competitiveness is important for a few reasons. First, it can drastically reduce the time that you spend doing keyword research because it's all provided for you directly. Second, it can add a good, solid, comprehensive filter for initial keyword selection. So rather than you having to analyze the top 10 results individually on every single keyword, it can just be a good, quick way to see what the best keywords are quickly. And then, of course, you can narrow down and look at the top 10 results individually. Third, it can also serve as the one and only criteria for lower stake keywords, such as your secondary keywords. A question that I get a lot from people that are using the keyword competitiveness metric is, what target should I shoot for? What number should I want to see? And so here's a quick cheat sheet that you can use to see how competitive or uncompetitive a particular keyword is. So really anything under 30 I would view as low competition, and the lower you go the better. Anything in the 30 to 40 range, and certainly as you get close to 40, I would shy away from. That's moderate competition. 40 to 50, somewhat high competition. Very high competition from 50 to 60. And then once you get to 70 to 100, I wouldn't even think about targeting those keywords. Now, it is important to remember that this is an algorithmic scale, just meaning that the difference between 0 to 10 is going to be less of a difference from 50 to 60, for example. Just meaning that the higher you go up the scale, it gets exponentially more difficult. So that's why right within the range of 30 to 40, things close to 30 you're, kind of okay. But as you get closer up to 40, those numbers are exponentially getting more difficult. So as you approach 40, you're starting to get to that very high competition level, or that somewhat high competition. And so you should try to make your life much easier and just stick under that 30 number if at all possible. Now, this is another great tip that I like to use for all of my articles and all of my sites, is to see if there's similar sites ranking. And it honestly may be the most important of all ranking factors if you look at it correctly. You want to be able to see if there's sites just like yours ranking. And ideally, they're going to be ranking in the top spots. And the reason for that is simply because if Google is happy to rank those types of sites, they're going to also be happy to rank yours. The opposite is also true on that. If there's no sites like yours, it's a sign that Google doesn't like to rank sites like yours for that particular keyword. So in other words, this is a very simple version of market research, and market validation. For example, if you are creating a small niche site on hunting knives and all that you see in the top 10 results of Google are e-commerce sites or large retail stores, that's probably a bad sign. You're not seeing any similar sites. So even if all the metrics are showing, hey, this has a low keyword competitiveness, this has all the other winning criteria that we just looked at, but there are no similar sites to your own, you should probably avoid that keyword. You want to see things that have lots of niche sites in the top 10 of Google if you're creating a small niche site. On the other hand, if you have an e-commerce store, it's a good sign for you if you see lots of e-commerce stores. So this is a great metric to be looking at. Look for those similar sites, and we will be diving into this with lots of examples here in the near future. Some other quick things that you want to look at for in a primary keyword, or the difficulty of ranking for a primary keyword, is the strength of the posts, pages, and articles ranking for that keyword. If there's poorly written or short articles, that really is a good thing. So looking at not only the overall competitiveness of the statistics, but the actual content that's on the page. Secondly, the overall strength of the user experience of the pages and posts for that particular keyword. If there's bad design, that's usually a good thing because you can improve on that. Now, thirdly, the strength of the on-page SEO for competing pages, of course, is something that you want to look at as well. You want to see pages that aren't hitting all of the on-page things that you know that you can hit. Now, most importantly, when you're looking at these primary keywords, you want to recognize keywords that you can actually build pillar articles around. Even if it's something that's super niche, it should be something that you can write an amazing guide for, develop a great infographic, or anything else that will attract links, shares, and traffic. At the end of the day, those are the things that you're looking for. And so you want an article that's going to make you money. So you want to be able to find a keyword that you can write this pillar article around, because the pillar articles really are going to be the backbone of your site. Now, I do want to briefly just go over the example of a winning primary keyword, and that's best hunting knife. As you can see, it has a search volume of 1,900 per month. This is very close to 2,000 searches per month, so that's good enough in my book. There's a little flexibility there, so it checks off that box. It doesn't have the $1 CPC, but I happen to know that you can do a lot of great product reviews and refer people to Amazon if you're an affiliate. So it meets that criteria of having at least a market there. It does have medium advertiser competition, which is good enough as well. But I just circled here on the top 10 results very quickly a couple of sites that are either under a year old, as you can see in that site age. So there's a couple of newer sites ranking, and there's certainly a couple of smaller niche sites ranking, so that's a good sign. The keyword competitiveness is quite low for a number of results. There's also a few results that have under a domain authority of 20, which is certainly a good thing. The overall average keyword competitiveness is 22, so we're definitely in that very low competition range. This would be an example of a great winning primary keyword. We're going to dive into lots of other examples, so don't fret over getting all of the stats down on this particular slide, because in our next lesson, we're going to go over lots of examples and specific criteria that you should be looking at in much more depth. So that was all for primary keywords. The criteria for a winning secondary keyword is going to be very similar. You still want it to be relevant to your niche in some way. It's fine to have weaker buying intent. You need other types of articles anyways on your site. Again, the CPC, this doesn't matter quite as much, but higher is still better. Advertiser competition, same thing. Search volume, somewhere in the 200 to 800 is a nice sweet spot, but anything over about 10 or so really is fine. You don't need a ton of search volume, in particular with the knowledge that you are going to get related keywords anyways. Even though you're targeting one specific secondary keyword, there's going to be phrases very similar that you're just going to rank for naturally. And longer phrases typically do better, typically are a little bit easier to rank for. But the most important thing for your secondary keywords is really just going to be keyword competitiveness, at least being able to quickly analyze and choose these secondary keywords. These keywords usually are going to be lower stake, and so they don't require as much detailed, in-depth, drawn-out research. You can take more of a shotgun approach to this because after you meet some of the basic requirements, you just pick what fits best with your site. So the technical requirements aren't as strict, so you should pick what's best for your audience. That really should take a priority overall. Now, just a quick note on secondary keywords. First, just make sure that you can write about them, that it's relevant to your site. Second, you may not be writing pillar articles for each of these. You might write shorter articles or have less detailed information than you have on your pillar articles. And third, however, there should be some obvious angle that will add value to your site. You need to solve a problem for your readers and get people to click on things. So overall, that is the winning criteria for primary and secondary keywords. Very important that you're meeting that criteria as you start to narrow down your search for those keywords that you want to write articles about. In our next lesson, we're going to look at analyzing the competition in Google, which is where you're going to want to spend a lot of time to make sure that you can actually rank naturally for these keywords. So stay tuned. Thanks a lot.